Let's now shift focus to the real estate sector as the Lagos State government has launched a real estate transaction department portal where key players in the real estate industry can register and genuinely transact business. Karima Salami, who attended the summit, reports that the government believes this will end fraudulent and unprofessional practices in the industry.
It's very paramount.
The summit is a stakeholders' engagement on real estate business. This is organized to discuss emerging issues and develop creative ways to curb unfair practices by challenges who have been defrauding members of the public.
In Nigeria today, the only formal training for the practice of estate agency is estate management, also known as estate surveying and valuation, which you will find in over 30 universities and polytechnics at both degree and diploma levels in Nigeria.
With the 21st century smart city of Lagos, it is required that virtually all real estate key players' transactions are known and captured electronically.
To explore the development of new technology, to create a platform for establishing business relationships with potential clients and also maintain existing ones. Apart from promoting efficiency, new technology also enhances transparency, which is very essential in establishing and sustaining credibility and integrity in your business.
Business people, lawyers, surveyors, we're in sync. We're ready to sanitize the industry. We're ready to curb the fraud in the real estate industry. And we're good to go because we got the buy-in here today that government needs to take its place in the committee of that business.
The Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria lauded the state government's initiative and pledges its support.
Lagos still remains the largest contributors to the NHF because of the public sector end of it. So we just felt that this is the only way to make a financial inclusion of the Lagos State civil servants who should be contributing to the National Housing Fund. That's why we're here to encourage the state to come back so that they benefit from us.
Governor Sanwo-Olu reiterated his administration's drive to bridge the housing deficit gap in Lagos and also tackle the issues between property owners and their clients.
Once we get it right from engagements like this, not only will things work quicker and better for us, it will work smarter and people will have a lot more comfort. At the end of the day, it's going to be a win-win situation. We'll be able to deepen and grow this market. We will know who are the players in this market. And like they said, government will also need to play its own part. How quickly do we give people CFO? How quickly do we ensure that the transaction cost is reduced so that we can grow this economy and Lagos can truly become just a destination choice?
Real estate business owners are charged to be transparent and display integrity in their dealings with the public and also register with the state agency for a better harmonious working relationship with government. Karima Salami, TVC News, Lagos.
And still talking about improving the housing sector in Nigeria, real estate expert Ejike Okpa highlights the way to go in addressing the current housing deficit, which stands at 22 million. And the World Bank says that this will cost Nigeria no less than $59 billion to fill. Nigeria's mortgage to GDP ratio is currently about 0.5% to South Africa's 30%.
Then something is wrong. There's something wrong with the way Nigeria planning land use is. And because if you look at 22 million, Nigeria has never built 1 million housing in any particular year. So it would take 22 years to even achieve that. And then if you do half of it, it would take 44 years. So what needs to happen is Nigeria needs to look at their mortgage industry. They need to look at the secondary mortgage industry. They need to look at the Land Use Act, because those are the things that are challenging the housing market. And then the ownership, how do you acquire and own land in Nigeria? Is also these are some of the factors that needs to be addressed.
And Nigeria's mortgage to GDP ratio is currently about 0.5% compared to South Africa's 30%. It says it's time to get things right, moving from infancy stage.
Well, the quality of, for instance, mortgage has to be a lender, the primary lender and the secondary lender. So the quality of the asset has to be such that the primary lender who makes the mortgage can turn around and sell the portfolio to a secondary holder. So the quality of real estate underwriting in Nigeria is very poor. The Nigerian real estate appraisers and valuation people haven't gotten into the sophistication of underwriting mortgages. And then you look at the banks, the interest rate. I mean, if you're charging somebody 20%, 15%, 19%, even if it's ₦1 million, assuming, because nobody can buy a house for ₦1 million. So if it's ₦1 million, how can you survive paying 20%? So the Nigerian government has to really look at the interest rate being charged on mortgages. And that is the critical part. And because real estate, like you said, the ratio of mortgages to the GDP is very low. Real estate, for instance, in America constitutes about 70% of the economic wealth. So, Nigeria puts weight on oil and all these other commodities, but the real estate needs to be addressed, and mortgage is key to it.
And the Land Use Act of 1978 studios property registration processes still remain contentious issues which need to be reviewed. His thoughts.
The act itself, has its own challenges, but what has happened is we have now taken the role of land ownership in every state to the federal government as well as the state governors. And the state governors can do whatever they want, So for you to get a piece of land, whether it is a small piece or a bigger piece, you got to go through this tedious registration process. We need to begin to let those things out. If you own a piece of land, you want to buy it, that's a transaction between the buyer and the seller. You register it, and then the government should automatically give you 99-year lease. It is not such that where the governor will wake up one day and want to, revoke your right of occupancy or right of ownership. It should never be. The politics of that should be nullified by the National Assembly. The Minister of Housing is given too much responsibility. There's too much in the portfolio of the ministry in order for them to handle housing. So those are the things, and I had a colleague who visited me in Dallas recently, and I asked him, the Nigerian Institution of Estate Surveyors and the bankers, they have not presented any restructuring of how the housing market in Nigeria works. And that's the problem with the professionals in Nigeria. They are all transaction-driven. They are not transformation-driven.
And now the cost of local building materials have seen a surge, making production not meet maximum capacity. Some say this has also contributed to the collapse of buildings so far witnessed.
The collapsing of building is also a part of the deficiency in the professional services of the engineers, the building, the architects, whomever is involved in that project. I mean, I think any time a building collapses, what the government should do for the sake of public safety should suspend the license of everybody involved in that whole process. The construction guy, the architect that designed it, the guy in the ministry that gave the permit for it to be built, assuming they are doing it, such thing, and then the landowner. So all these people have to pay a penalty. So far, I don't even think anybody's been paying a penalty, but you need to suspend their license. You need to suspend their license, and then the insurance company, assuming they are, there's an insurance company that is involved, that insures the project, they too have to have some responsibility. So it is a failure of the professional practice, because of course, nature has its way of dealing with projects or structures, but some of the things that have happened in Nigeria is lacks of professional standards. I mean, the building material, 80% of what goes into building any house, any project is local. I mean, you're talking about sand and cement and maybe, okay, in the case of Nigeria, you have no steel industry, the rods. I mean, the rest is what? Glasses and windows and then the roof. So 80 to 90% of what you need to build any house in any country is local material. So why is it expensive? You have given the rights to very few people like Dangote to be the sole importer of cement. That's monopolistic. That's antitrust. He shouldn't have that. I'm not talking about him as a company, but that is what the case has been. So building materials should be cheap in Nigeria. I mean, you have the sand, you have the water, you have so many cement factories. And standards has to be by training. So once a plan is submitted, the architect has done the drawings, then it goes to a local government authority or state authority, and they review the plan. You say, okay, go ahead and build. So for every stage of the construction, there should be a thorough inspection before they go to the next stage. So you pour the foundation, somebody has to make sure the ratio of the cement to the sand and the water makes sense. Because before it collapses, that means the weight, there's a weight factor there that's created the thing to fall. So the stages of, for instance, I'll give you an example. I've lived in Dallas for 32 years. If you pour the foundation, before you do the wall, somebody has to come from the city and give you what they call a green tag. That means you are ready for the next stage.
And our more aggressive policy direction for the housing sector is the next focus.
Till you get the land use plan of Nigeria right, Nigeria will never be a successful country. It starts with the land. How your lots, which we call lots in America, plots in Nigeria, your streets, your easement, all of those things have to. And that's why we have a utility challenge in Nigeria. I mean, look at Lagos with, 17, 20 million people they say they have. It has no sewer system. It's an open gutter. It's part of the planning. Before you pour the concrete, there has to be a standard. There has to be a plan that people follow. And that plan has to be to meet the need of public safety. It's not just, build anything. I mean, I look around, and then this is a fact. 90% of buildings in Nigeria are poorly built.
Strengthening institutions like the Federal Mortgage Bank, Federal Housing Authority and Urban Development Bank is a necessity, but the scope needs to be redefined.
What has happened over the years, these institutions that are supposed to take a lead and look at best practices across the world, they're not doing it. All they're doing is looking for appointments from the president or whomever appoints them to those things, and they sit there and do nothing. So for mortgage to survive in Nigeria, the quality of the asset has to be such that I can live in Japan. How does real estate become an export good? Is by the rights attached to that real estate. So I can invest $1 billion in Nigerian housing mortgages, but I got to make sure that the quality, the assets underwriting that loan is very good. So who buys Nigerian mortgage paper? Nobody. Nobody purchases Nigeria. I went to Harvard and I have a certificate in real estate securitization. So when you see other countries, what they do this in their portfolio warehousing, boom, and they sell it. So it could be a pension fund in Japan or Germany or anywhere in the world. They say, oh, yeah, I buy those papers. And they fund it. So in Nigeria case, the government wants to do mortgage by direct funding from the budget. That's not the way it is done. You have to go to the market, raise the money. But in order for you to raise the money, you have to create the quality and the confidence so that investors, they don't have to come to Nigeria. They just say, hey, I have a paper. I have mortgage paper from Nigeria. And another challenging factor is the Naira is not a stable currency. And then the interest rate, just do the math. If you pay 20% on 1 million, regardless of the currency denomination, whether it's a pound or the dollar, that's 200,000 units you have to pay every year. And in order for you to satisfy the payment on interest rate, 20%, you have to make 600,000. That means you have to make 3 times whatever your interest rate in order to support that kind. So Nigeria government has to come back and look at the interest rate charged on mortgages.
And conversations wrap up with his expectation for the industry for the next 4 years from now.
This in Nigeria needs to be taken a look at, and then again invite Nigerians domestically, internationally. Let's have this dialogue, because we are not going to reinvent the wheel. The world is not waiting for Nigeria. The world is not going to wait for what the president of Nigeria is thinking, and Nigerians themselves already know it. Because for those of you that work, you look at your salary. Can you afford to buy a 50 million naira house in Nigeria, which is $100,000 something? It's difficult. So we have to really be honest about this country, and we can no longer yield to any particular group of people in order for this to happen. Nigerians are smart people, but oftentimes in their collective existence, they just don't know how to pull the resources that are already lying in wait.
Well, that was the submission of real estate expert Ejike Okpa on the way to go in addressing Nigeria's housing deficit.